Welcome back. Now it is time to dig into the play section. And on that little square of paper, not the rectangle, but the smaller, well, it's kind of a rectangle, if you have one. And okay, I want you to write down what comes up for you when you see this word play. Do you have any emotions that are coming up? Do you have specific visuals? Do you feel any kinds of restrictions? Are you feeling kind of nervous about what's going to happen? Just let it out. And try to be as legible as possible. Sorry, forgot to point that out. Oh. Well, okay. It should be.
I'm not going to be reading this.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But I'm sure it's okay. Just. You what? It's okay.
Extra so Dan can have a do-over.
Yeah, or you can, or do you want to do it over?
I'll give basic limit.
Okay. Well, I'll just invite you to bravely share what you personally wrote down if you'd like to. But if not, you can keep it to yourself. Okay.
Whenever ready.
Okay. And yeah, when you are done, I will take your paper. Okay. Are you done? Is that what you're doing? Yes. Okay. Thank you. You done? Sweet. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Now I'm going to start giving you, okay, now here's this one for you. There you are. There you are. Oh wait, that one's yours. Y'all done?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if I need to make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, mine's on.
That's like a little Rorschach test.
I'll trade you. Or wait, oh, you already have one. You can give it to her. You can give it to Stacy. Oh, pass it on down to Rick then. Okay. One for you. And one for you.
Okay.
And you. Who doesn't have one? There you are. Okay. All right. Start with one of the Dans. You could share us what you wrote.
For me, whenever I see play, I mean, I'm a big kid too. I mean, basically, that's just who I am. I think of my daughters who are now, teenagers, but really just love fun. Me remaining part of me always a kid, and then I think of us regularly playing Slug Bus still in the car, which my wife really? Like, you're so hard. It's like, you can't be.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, and then we'll just go around the room and go ahead and read what you have.
Okay, we have swing sets, laughter, carefree, fun, children, travel, games, family, and adventure.
Cool.
When, question mark, I think that word is where, and schedule or scheduling.
Yeah, okay.
I have bonding with Aubrey and Brendan, which I imagine are somebody important. Games on my phone, allowing myself to be uncomfortable. And this one says never enough time, needing to do dishes or laundry, but when I do, I realize how much I'm missing with my to-do list. But football with kids, game night, dance party, and ever running. Even running.
Thank you.
Ping pong, video games, fun, friends, frisbee, catch.
list is fun, joy, experimentation, and then parenthetically at the end, guilt.
Oh.
That'll stick to your
Mm-hmm.
as well. She's a dual person. Actually, the dual fever.
Okay.
This one says excitement, happiness, joy, hard to commit to it, and music.
I have tag, laughter, sunshine, summertime, swimming, pine trees, and sprinklers.
Mm.
Yes. Smile, laughter, fun, release.
I have travel, fun, with company, not alone.
Escapism, adventure, downtime, flow, disconnection, comfort, family, independence, music, reading, films, sports.
Sounds like fun right there.
Yeah.
Play, exciting, tiring, fun.
Okay, quite the mix, right? So, when it comes to play, for most of us, especially in the work setting or when we're trying to get something done, play is perceived as unproductive, petty, or some sort of guilty pleasure. But it is pivotal for us adults, just as pivotal as it is for kids. And I'm going to tell you about this guy named Stuart Brown, and he is a psychiatrist, clinical researcher, basically like the play guy. He has written this book, which you'll get some resources at the end of this, but he's written this book, and it is, I'm still not even done with it. Like the first 15 pages like changed my life. I was like, oh my gosh. He has so much fascinating stuff, and what's crazy about him is he was a psychiatrist, but then his work began after Charles Whitman and the Texas Tower Massacre. He was invited to basically like look into Charles' life. And he was also starting to look into like other like people who had committed large crimes and found that the common theme in a lot of these people's lives was that they did not have a lot of play as children or even as adults. And the same friend who brought up the Renaissance Festival was like, so are you going to tell everyone today if they don't play, they're going to become murderers? I'm like, no, and I don't really mean to make a joke out of that, but I don't want to like scare you guys, but it's crazy. And so this case is what launched Stuart into studying play, because he's like, okay, wait a minute, like we've got to talk about this, we've got to dig into this. So he has studied over 8,000 different people's play histories and lives. He's, and he's worked with, a lot of prisoners, business people, Nobel Prize winners, and he's found some fascinating things. And he's also the founder of the National Institute for Play. And I just friended him on Facebook, and this is the most recent image of him. And I love him. I love him. I love him. I love him. And there is a woman. So I was like, I have a mutual friend with Stuart Brown, and my aunt is friends with this woman named Dee Cooper, who she connected me with a while back because she's all into connection and all the good self-care stuff, right? But we hadn't connected yet. So I messaged her. I'm like, how do you know Stuart Brown? She's like, oh, I got this grant to travel the world and study, the power of play in animals and how that connects to humans. And I got to go meet Stuart in California and sit in his treehouse with him where he writes and talk about life and play. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is on my bucket list. And I really want to meet this guy someday because he's amazing. So.
Now I just want a treehouse.
I know! Like he has his own treehouse. So cool. So here's just some of the things that play can do for us. So many business ideas have come out of it. It obviously boosts our happiness, our fulfillment. It can be really good for healing. It's really good for increasing productivity. Ooh, do I see Play-Doh? Nice, way to go. Good for you. How does it feel?
Good.
Yeah,
Very good,
just
yes.
to, get it going. I love that. Oh, wait, yeah, you got another one over there. Cool. It's
It was a result of his daydreaming.
Love it. So I'm going to dig into, so I could talk about this all day, and I had to cut a lot out because there's so much I want to say, but I'm going to tell you just some of my favorite things about this topic. And one of the biggest things that play helps us with is memory and learning. Now, so when I was a kid, I used to have these little things called nature shows. And P.S., I love how, can we take a moment to appreciate these random words that are going to lead the stories? We go from nature show to obituaries to fairies to a handshake. I don't know, we'll see what happens. So because I was actually bored, which is something that we don't really experience anymore, and especially as a child, I thought up these things called nature shows, where I would print out all these tickets for all of these imaginary people on my old 90s printer with the perforated circle things on the edges, whatever the term is for that. It's escaping me.
Matrix. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And I would go outside and sit with my imaginary friends and let nature entertain us. So if there was a breeze or a leaf started moving, we would clap. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite memories because it's something that I thought up on my own, out of nowhere, and it was playful, right? And it was like this purposeless thing that I just decided to do. And here's the thing with play and memories, and this is why I'm moving into obituaries. So Stuart Brown, when he was reading a lot of the obituaries after 9/11, he was seeing this common theme of what the titles in everyone's stories had something to do with playfulness. So I can't remember like the Spitball King and the Dancing Queen, or there's every nickname for these people has something to do with something that was playful. And when I think back to, again, back to my childhood and playing fairies with my friend Jessica for 4 straight years, I won't tell you what year we stopped, okay? It's kind of a late bloomer in that sense. And I was pretty sad when it was time to close the book of spells and whatnot. But I was talking to her about this last year, and she remembers the password that we had before we got into each other's family cars. She's like, CC11892, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you remember that? Because again, it was this playful thing that we had all this time to entertain ourselves, and we were just coming up with all this stuff. And so then my uncle and we had this handshake when I was 4, and I remember this. It was, give me 5, stay alive. Give me 4, get on the floor. We'd get on the floor. Oh, give me 3, let's have tea. Give me 2, take off your shoe. Give me 1, let's have fun. And we dance around. And again, I'm remembering this vividly. So just something to think about. Some of our most positive memories have something to do with that. And one more. When I was also a kid, my dad was like, hey, bless you. He's like, go get one of those Crayola washable markers. Of course, he didn't say it like that. But he's like, go get a marker. And so we stood by the window and we traced the moon. And it was the simplest thing, but one of my favorite things to remember because, again, it was just, who does that? And it was so cool that my dad thought that up and that we just stood there and we would do just plain circles, we would do filled in circles, we'd move over here and we'd draw circles. And so this is actually what inspired one of the challenges in one of the 5 for 5s, and it was to like as adults, right, like go up, like right now, you could go up to that glass right now and trace that building, and you'd get maybe the same effects that you did as you were doodling, or maybe as you were daydreaming. It's the same, you know, hands-on thing that you could do. It's a great thing to do with kids. It's just awesome. Simple, but powerful. The other thing about play is it really increases the morale and the connection between people at work. In this book, again, Stuart talks about some CEO. He didn't say what company, but he said one of his friends one day, after the company had kind of gone through a low point, people were not feeling very good and finances were bad, and he pulled everyone into the company auditorium, and he's like, look guys, this is all my fault. And everyone's like not feeling very good. And he's like, but underneath your seat is a Nerf gun, and because it's my fault, you all get to take a shot at me right now. So everyone started shooting darts at him from all over the auditorium, and immediately the mood was lifted. Another thing, so like when I used to work at a startup, we would play just little random games throughout the day where, like, for example, this guy Steve, every time he was on a recruiting call, he would drop like all these idioms. Is that the word? Where you say like, it's a slippery slope? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, and every time that he would say something like that, we would have a tally, like a running tally. And I don't remember anything about recruiting people. I remember the tally, and I remember how much fun we had just because of those little things. And now here's someone I've got to talk about, and it's my husband. He runs a lot of teams, and when I go to team dinners with his people, I've heard this numerous times. People are like, I am so miserable, but I love working with David, so that's the only thing keeping me at that company right now. And it's because he has a lot of little playful things that he injects into their days, even during busy season. So like they have this thing called, like they play bingo. So just throughout the day, like for example, one of the things is like, if Jeff shows up not wearing a plaid shirt, mark it down, right? Like there's like little like subtle observations about everyone that, you know, don't really get in the way of productivity, but get you like observing each other more and laughing more. They have this, I think they have like a bouncy ball that they'll, every once in a while they'll be like, okay, think fast. Like I'd throw it to you, Eunice, and I'd be like, think fast. And then I would be able to ask you just a random question, like, what was your favorite vacation this year? And then, yeah, it just like breaks things up a little bit. He's also pretty notorious for costumes. So they all secretly dressed up like one of the partners at Deloitte and put on fake mustaches. Like they went to Goodwill at like 8 p.m. on a Tuesday in the thick of deadlines and got like Argyle sweaters and went to town on their outfits to look like this guy Steve. And it was hilarious. And then one day, like they all, and it usually falls around Halloween when they're in this. So one Halloween they all dressed up in denim, and like, again, it was like a team outing to go find really bad denim. And like, it's just the little things make a huge difference. And according to Gallup, they did a study that basically 70% of someone's engagement in a company depends on their manager. Like their happiness completely goes back to who is leading them. So, the next one, joy and fulfillment. This is an obvious one. I cannot do this story justice, so I actually have to read you an excerpt from Big Magic. Who's read this? Okay, good, not a lot of people. Okay, but this is my absolute favorite part. Okay, close your eyes, please, if you'd like. I'm being very demanding. Okay, one of the coolest examples of creative living that I've seen in recent years, for instance, came from my friend Susan, who took up figure skating when she was 40 years old. To be more precise, she actually already knew how to skate. She had competed in figure skating as a child and had always loved it, but she'd quit the sport during adolescence when it became clear she didn't have quite enough talent to be a champion. For the next quarter of a century, my friend Susan did not skate. Why bother if you can't be the best? Then she turned 40. She was listless. She was restless. She felt drab and heavy. She did a little soul searching, the way one does on the big birthdays. She asked herself, when was the last time she'd felt truly light, joyous, and yes, creative in her own skin? To her shock, she realized that it had been decades since she'd felt that way. In fact, the last time she'd experienced such feelings had been as a teenager, back when she was still figure skating. She was appalled to discover that she had denied herself this life-affirming pursuit for so long, and she was curious to see if she still loved it. So she followed her curiosity. She bought a pair of skates, found a rink, hired a coach. She ignored the voice within her that told her she was being self-indulgent and preposterous to do this crazy thing. She tamped down her feelings of self-consciousness at being the only middle-aged woman on the ice with all those tiny, feathery 9-year-old girls. She just did it. 3 mornings a week, Susan awoke before dawn, and in that groggy hour before her demanding day job began, she skated. And she skated, and skated, and skated. And yes, she loved it as much as ever. She loved it even more than ever, perhaps, because now, as an adult, she finally had the perspective to appreciate the value of her own joy. Skating made her feel alive and ageless. She stopped feeling like she was nothing more than a consumer, nothing more than the sum of her daily obligations and duties. She was making something of herself, making something with herself. Okay, I'm stopping now. I can keep going. While you were listening to that, did you have a version of your ice skating that's coming up for you? I know I do. Does anyone want to share? Yeah?
For me, it's just, I used to do a lot of art.
Yeah.
You know, actually doing drawing, painting, and all that. And, you know, now it's all the commercial stuff, and I don't actually do the just creating something for no reason.
Right.
Except I want to express it, so.
Yeah.
Getting more back into that would be very nice.
Yeah.
I feel like mine's kind of different, but we used to always do like really like the dance party kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now like I used to do it alone, but like with me and my sister we would laugh like endlessly and be so happy, and we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Oh.
For me, it was music.
Powerful.
It was. I feel the same way. I feel like
Yeah.
I cheated myself in a way where it was music for me. It was playing a guitar. Just stopped doing it.
Mine was actually the same because I was a really good musician. I went to college on a music scholarship, and I haven't played since college. And I wonder if I still could. Sorry, not.
I feel like this year I did the thing that I really missed as a kid. We had the summer house and no Wi-Fi time or running water. But yeah, so we've been finally got a little mountain cabin with no Wi-Fi but running water. And can go skiing a lot. I haven't done in over a decade. But it was a very conscious thing that I had to be like, this is what I need in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a almost identical story in the playbook about another woman in her 40s, she passed 40. It must be something about turning 40. And she started to, she had an amazing family, great job, was exercising, regularly, but something was missing. And she sat back and she asked herself, when was the last time that I really felt joy and creative in my life? And she flashed back to horseback riding. And she too was a competitor back in the day, but then she was just missing the act of riding horses. P.S. As a kid, she would go over to her neighbors, so that her neighbors had a horse, and she would taunt the thing and jump on the horse's back while no one had any clue that this little girl was just riding a horse around the backyard. So she was missing those moments. So she was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to do this once a week. She hired a coach, and everything in her life changed because of that. And the thing that she thought would be completely unproductive and pointless and self-indulgent and, guiltful is the thing that needed to happen to change everything else in her life. Her conversations with her husband started changing. It no longer felt like a work meeting about, well, what are you going to do? Okay, what time are you going to do that? They actually would start talking about things instead of what they needed to do. And her relationship with her kids totally changed. And so
What was yours?
piano, playing the piano. Yeah, because for me, golf is that's my ice skating in the summer. But I'm a wuss and I don't play if it's below 70 degrees. So I'm like, all right, I got to figure out what's going to be my thing. And then this morning in the shower, I was like, it's piano. And long story on that one. But I need to figure out a way. Got to figure out a way. But and that's the thing, because I remember even earlier this year, my mom's like, we're going to get you a keyboard for your birthday. And I was like, no, that's not, I'd rather put that money towards something else, something that's more productive for our family, or all these other things we're trying to do, or these places we want to go. Why would I spend that much money on myself to just play an instrument? Because it can change your life and change everything within it, right? And then this is just a funny one. So the other night, so David has this stress ball, and he bounces that thing around a lot. And we were watching a movie, and I started playing some music, and I started dancing around the other Friday night. And David actually joined in a little bit, and he brought his ball with him, and I'm and then he went like this, and I couldn't catch it for 26 times in a row. He'd come at me and I'd be because this is why I play golf, because I can't do anything else. I can't throw, I can't catch, So he taught me how to catch, and it almost made me cry, because I'm this is I love this moment. Here we are just bouncing this ball around in our living room, but we're just connecting, right? And then he tells this other story about this couple who, I don't know the full details. All I know is that things were not going well in their marriage, and they did this 3-legged race in something, and that night, something that hadn't happened for 5 months happened. It's 3-legged race. Hello, all these things that were oh, it's pointless. They're powerful. Okay.
Reminds me of the Pina Colada song, where you
Yeah.
learn things you don't realize were missing, and when you discover them,
Yeah.
you kind of reconnect that relationship.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the other thing is innovation and problem solving. And, oh my gosh, so do you guys know about, you probably know, JPL? Okay, yeah, I didn't know about it. So it's an aerospace, aerospace department within, what university? Is it California or something? Probably, right?
The rocket makers.
Yeah. Basically, there's a bunch of scientists and engineers in this department called JPL, and they have been responsible for a lot of features in pretty much everything that's gone to space in our time. Now, in the 90s, a lot of the older engineers started retiring, and some new folks were coming in, and they were starting to figure out, that in the book, it's whatever the city was, dang it, it was Delaware, we have a problem or something. Anyway. Moving on. So, all these guys started retiring. All these men and women, right? Retiring. then they realized that they weren't very good with problem solving. Okay, they were struggling to figure out how to work through some things. And they're like, what's going on? And they got in contact with this other guy who ran like an auto type shop, and he was having the same problem with his folks. They were struggling to like build things and problem solve. So long story short, they figured out that those people who had played a lot with their hands as kids, like taken apart a radio and put it back together, taken apart a flashlight, put it back together, did the Lego thing, all the things, those people were much better at problem solving than those who hadn't done that as a kid. So they actually started changing the interview process and asking that very important question, how did you play as a kid? And if they didn't mention anything that they did hands-on, I was like a big no, crazy. So again, even something that you do as a child can completely impact something as an adult. It can impact how you work and how you work through things. Another cool thing with Intel, so they were, at one point, they were producing all these memory chips. Then the Japanese started doing it, and then Intel was like going down the gutter because the Japanese were doing it for cheaper. And so the two guys who were in charge one day, they were sitting around, they're like, oh my gosh, like our board is gonna fire us if we don't figure out how, what was that? Another thing. If we don't figure out what's going on. And they're freaking out because they have this whole factory, everything to do with Intel at that time was surrounding around memory chips. And they were like, what do we do? They're like, they're gonna fire us and they're gonna bring in these new hotshot executives who are gonna take over. And the one guy looks at the other one and goes, well, why don't we just do that ourselves? And so they pretended to fire themselves that day. And they physically walked out of the building and then physically walked back in. And in that moment, they were like, okay, we've got to let go of the memory chips altogether. And then eventually they ended up creating microprocessors, which is what Intel is famous for today. Crazy. All because, like, and that's what's cool. Like, we think that as adults, we're done pretending and we can't do that anymore, but we can do it in small ways that change so much in our work. So here's another cool thing. Who's heard of 20% time? Yeah?
So 20% of the time you do something you want to do instead of something you have to do?
Yeah. So Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn, they definitely do this. They let their people work on whatever they want to work on for 20% of the time. Within that, two things have come out of Google that happened because of 20% time. One, Gmail. Two, AdSense. And guess how much money AdSense makes Google a year?
Billions.
Yeah, a quarter of their revenue. Because of this protected, tinkering, wasted time, two humongous things have come out of 20% time. Crazy. So, now, I'm going to send you all off for your next adventure. And this has to do, so because the weather is crappy, we're going to get creative. Now, originally what we were going to do is you're going to go outside, and you still can. If you're feeling adventurous and you want to do that, go for it. But for the next, well, and here's the other thing too, you have 15 minutes, okay? And so, I know, and you don't have anything to tell the time. So you're gonna actually have to ask people what time it is. Yeah, to be able to make it back here on time and to maybe just get a sense of time just on your own, right? But so you and a partner are going to go take a new route of some sort. Even if this means going to a different floor, to maybe go to the bathroom, or go into an office, as Rick, you suggested, I love this idea, walking into an office in this building and asking them, So what do you guys do? Tell me about what you do. Or like just walking down the hall and having a conversation about something that you may typically wouldn't have with someone that you just met, or even someone that you know really well. Do something new of some sort, something playful. And that's what's cool about play. Like, it can just be doing something, driving a new way home, or asking someone a new question. It doesn't need to be like this like happy jumping around thing. You don't even have to be smiling to be playful. So, decide how to pick partners now, because I think it would be fun to send you all with someone that you don't know.
I want to pick across the table.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Boom. Okay. Now and then, do we have even numbers? Wait, what? Yeah.
No, I'm crossing him.
Oh.
I think because you're the oddball, then you get to choose who you want to be the third wheel.
Yeah. We'll have a 3-person group. Yeah. But it can't be with Nina.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Taking the Play-Doh with you.
Good. So yeah, what time is it? So we'll do, and like if it's not on the dot, it's not on the dot. But so go ahead and get with your partner.